Hi everyone, welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of standing practices that we use in Tai Chi and also in the Dao Gong. When we practice the moving forms, they're usually based on some foundational practices, and standing or zhangjuan is one of the keys to helping you go a little bit deeper and get a little bit more out of your posture and your structure. So normally one of the key ones you see in Tai Chi and related arts is where we stand like holding a ball or a tree, and the arms come up in front about chest level. So there's this kind of shape, and you can see how the arms are around it. And in different forms of Tai Chi, you'll see this shape being used in practice. It's really like a ball. So if you see how I move my arms in this rotational way, as though I'm holding a ball in my hands and I'm rotating it from side to side, this is quite a good example of what happens with Tai Chi and the movements of Tai Chi. So this shape enables you to have enough structure to allow pressure to be absorbed into your body, and teaches you about relaxing. So one of the main keys to all of the training is relaxation. So most people, it's a challenging one. Even if you've been practicing for a long time, there's always some levels or some degree of tension in your body. And this is, an ongoing process. So tension often reflects many things, from what's going on in the mind to what's going on in the emotions, and the conditioning, previous conditioning, whether you've done a lot of weightlifting or very physical work, and that tends to be held in the body, even on an unconscious level. So it takes quite a bit of practice and awareness to undo all of that. Standing is one way. We have many other kind of warm-ups and exercises. Like in Dao Gong, you do a lot of punching and different hard kind of, well, not really hard in terms of tension, but they're ways of opening the body. So you're using force, just like a punch or a kick or something like that, or even the form training, like doing the chop form. You would also be exerting certain level of pressure to open the body and produce that elastic force. So standing also encourages that. So when your arms first start in the practice, when you first start holding the posture, usually you'll feel tension in the shoulders and different parts of the body. Gradually, the arms should relax and relax, more and more, until you don't really feel hardly anything in the shoulder. And then you can start to get a sense of this sort of elastic force in the body, and that can be shown when you do things like push hands or your partner is pushing against your body. So these are really important parts of the training. And often people say, oh, this is boring, standing. And I had the same experiences for a long time, but it just means you haven't gone deep enough. And there's a saying in Chinese about once you're in the door, you're sort of like on the way, or you understand the practice better. And from my training and experience, that really tells me that I've understood the practices and I feel the benefit of the practices, and then whenever I'm doing it, I'm very really into it, and I can feel like the changes on very subtle levels, very micro levels in the body and the mind. So that's a deepening of the process, and initially you don't get that, so there is a sense of boredom, so you've got to pass through that level. So the best way to do that is to do a little bit every day until you start getting a glimpse of the good feelings and you feel relaxed and calm and all of that, and that slowly builds. Of course, there are times when it's very sore and painful, and you've just got to work your way through it. Eventually you will, and you will end up feeling less of that tension and a nice warmth internally and a happiness in the mind. So it's like we call it standing meditation, because it is dealing with a lot of the processes in the mind as well. So another one that's really important for martial training in particular is called Santi. So Santi, when you look at this movement we call chop, Pichan, the chop has the Santi within it. So the Santi form really values this posture, and it's used as a way of training the body. So most of the weight is sitting in this back leg, up to 90%, but when you first start, 70-30 is fine, and the heel is slightly raised in the front foot, and you're looking down here between the thumb and the first finger. Now there's a lot of details, and I won't go into all of them, and they're not appropriate until you've been practicing for a while. So I'm not trying to really teach you the movement today, but I'm just giving you a glimpse of what it looks like and what it's about. So the hands are rounded slightly. The key, of course, is relaxing. So when you start the posture, it's always torturous, especially this one. And most people find it hard to even last a minute, 2 minutes. It's really torturous in the beginning because the legs aren't strong enough, and that then adds to the tension in the upper body. So build up. You've got to just keep doing it until your body gets softer. And I'm not sure how long that takes. Everyone will have a different experience. The mind aspect, we say you're there but not there. So there's a calmness, a peacefulness, really. It's just you're attentive without forcing things. So this is another very important element. So these standing postures not only train structure and how to relax and how to connect the whole body, they also train a state of mind that's alert, that's supple, and which is very important in life in general, but also for self-defense. So that awareness gradually is revealed when you're using or training with a partner, and you start to, you pick up very subtle changes in the movement and in your own body as well. And this is how you keep refining your practice. So you're not dead. So one of the important things in practice, when I say dead, I mean that you're in an extreme. Either you're too tense or too soft. So somewhere in between is like the balance of yin and yang. Think of the yin and yang symbol, and think of it really when it's moving, it's alive. It's alive, it's supple, it's got a certain amount of fluidity about it. And that's reflected in things like Tai Chi forms. And when you watch people who are really good at it, they kind of flow through the movements. And it's the same when we're faced with a partner, someone who wants to hurt us, attack us. Then you have to become able to change. For example, if someone grabs your arm, if you're tense, you'll end up locking up, right? So that means you've locked yourself. Right? So this is a weakness that a lot of people have when they're training. So I might just ask Fontaine, my wife, to come and help here, and I'll just explain this because it's useful in one way. So if I grab Fontaine's arm and she sort of like, okay, what I'm gonna do is put a lock on her arm. So she tenses up, and most people are already tense anyway, so it's not very hard to do this. They're actually giving me leverage. They're giving me a purchase point. So when I feel that, it's very easy to move the person. You can see her arms are locked, her elbows are locked. There's all these areas that I can actually apply pressure to. But if she relaxes, really just lets go of her arm completely and forgets it's her arm, there's nothing there. This purchase point, it's really hard for me to find something. So her body starts to, it's just like a piece of rubber or something like that. So there's very little area for me to actually lock or put pressure on her. So this is what we start talking about when we talk about relaxation, softness, and change. So when people get to know this and their body can do this, it gives them a lot of advantages. When people are very tense, they lock themselves. So when you start to understand this principle, it's like you can apply it to all areas of your life, not just in the physical realm, but wherever you are, whatever you're doing, it may require you to look at things differently if you're getting problems out of that, if you're becoming too attached to it, too grasping to it, and not being able to let it go and change your perspective or enhance your understanding of something. So this is like part of the philosophical concept of the training. So yin and yang is very this idea of aliveness. So a good Chinese doctor would apply this in for example, a very simple way. You might see them one day and they give you some herbs and some treatment, and you might go another day or a few days later and they give you something different again. And because your condition is changing, it's not static. It's got a cycle to it, and it's whether or not the doctor can identify where you are on that cycle and then give you something to help you deal with those changes. So if we talk about push hands, which is another part of our training, if you're constantly kind of resisting all the time, your options are very limited. Whereas you can change, become more fluid, more responsive. There are many more options. So this is another aspect of training. So when we do Santi, a few things I want to mention about this standing posture is the way it's used. So there is structure and there's a connection. I might get Fontaine to come and help again. So there is connection through the body. So Fontaine, if you just come, first of all, just I'll ask you to just push on my arm. So yeah. So the first thing is to make sure your body is connected so that the pressure is not just in your shoulders, but it's going through to your leg. Okay, so you can see the shape of my arm, and you can see that when I exert pressure, it's driving Fontaine back that way because it's connected to the ground. So if you can't push the earth, that's the saying. So if somebody puts their foot against a door like a wedging the door, really hard to move it. If they just use their body to sort of support it, of course, if you're the person who's trying to get in is bigger and stronger, they'll push you out of the way. So this is like what we're doing. You can see this sort of shape connects everything down through the leg into the earth. The body itself has a few important conditions. Like if I raise my shoulder, more than likely I'm going to be pushed over unless my skill is really good. So I've got to be really careful. So the shoulder has to sit within the shoulder girdle, and I also connect to the back at the same time. And then I also make use of this arm. So this arm is a counterforce, and it also gives me that shape that I'm looking for. So if I do this, then I can, straight away Fontaine's found my weakness. So if I don't use this arm and she keeps pushing, I can also feel there's a lack of something, there's not enough counterforce to help. Once I connect things, it's a bit different. I really do notice the body has a lot more togetherness and strength, just in terms of shape. So we often call this dragon body, is another way to explain it. That would take a little bit more time to explain it fully, but it does have this rounded shape, and there's also this twisting within the body, but not losing the essential structure. The spine also is very important. So all of these things have to come together, and the Santi was considered like a revolution in terms of training because it connects your mind and your body. It's very Zen-like in many ways when you're practicing, that you're not sort of trying to create any extra thoughts. You're trying to simplify everything, calm everything down, and you gain sometimes insight into all sorts of things when you're practicing, but you're definitely helping the mind to de-stress, to come back to a more neutral state. And usually after good practice, well, you feel a lot of things. I won't go into it now. You feel a lot, especially the calmness that comes from the practice. It's amazing practice, actually. It's one of the best. I can recommend it to everyone because it gives you strength. It gives you clarity in terms of your mind, and it is a foundation for all of our training, in particular that we call Dao Gong, the martial training. And I'll show you another example of that, which is using the force. So when it's trained, we often call this training the dagger. So the dagger is the weapon that you would use in the end, like your last resort. So you're very close to your partner and you need a short stabbing movement, and that can be fatal, prove fatal to the attacker. So it's something is regarded as a dagger, and your training is keeping it sharp, obviously, and keeping it strong. So when it's applied, for example, people often don't think of using Santi for martial arts directly. They think, oh, you've got it, it's part and package, a part of a whole method of training. But really, just this force is what we train up. I'll show a few times, so I'm going to move back a little bit. So it doesn't have to be a palm, but we use a lot of palm. So, okay, I'll do it from, basically I'm touching the pad here. All right, so the idea is to be able to transfer the force from the back leg into the pad, and of course moving whatever. And you can imagine that force against somebody's chest or different part of the body would be quite devastating. So this takes a while. So it's not something you just do overnight. You got to practice. So again, just to recap a few points. So one of the keys to all of the training is relaxation, and then putting that into practice. So, there are simple versions of relaxation, like in the Hunyuan Tai Chi that we teach. There are things where we just relax the body and keep our mind calm. And they're gentle movements. Of course, they will develop power as well. However, these ones like this, Santi and that, and even the forms like chop form, become more demanding in certain ways. So they're considered higher level practices. Now, that doesn't mean the other ones can't go higher, they can. However, in training, it's a little bit like this, because I asked this question once of my teacher. I said, how come, these ones are so valued and why are they so hard? And he said, well, it's like singing. Someone can be a good sort of folk singer, rock singer or something. But when you talk about opera and those kinds of levels of singing, everyone respects that and knows that's a very refined art or skill. It takes a lot of many years to be good at. So you can see, one style of practice is more for general things. Another one is definitely much more for, more demanding, and the results will be much more useful especially for martial art. Martial art definitely requires these higher level practices. Hope that was useful for you. Thanks for listening and watching.